Hark, it's an 87th Precinct bonus episode. Hello again, everybody. We are now in the investigating the covers of... We are now in the investigating...
Ponds?
We're now in some ponds.
Covers of ponds. Didn't know anything about that. I would have revised.
I'm going to leave this mistake in just to prove to everyone that we're not the slick, smooth organisation that sometimes people will think that we are.
Of course, because that is the impression we normally give.
Definitely. I was going to say, the problem was this wasn't written down, this is why it's an issue. We are now in the investigating the covers of our editions of segment of the bonus episode, which is the start of it. It's where we always begin. And it's 80 Million Eyes, 21st book in the 87th Precinct series. If you listen to the main episode or you've read the book, you'll know one of the main aspects of it is it's about the death of a famous TV star live during his broadcast. So clearly that's the big influence on people putting together the covers for these things. Also, you'd think, but we'll have a little look at our editions and then we'll have a little look at the first editions as they were released in the UK and the US. Once again, Morgan is exempt from this because he has got his copy of the second 87th Precinct omnibus.
Trusty omnibus.
Imagine you had one giant book with like
the complete works.
All of them in. Like it'd have to be on a binder, wouldn't it?
It was brilliant.
Imagine huffing that.
Oh, yeah. We'd have to huff every page.
No one man could huff
every
that much.
chapter in it.
But the final showing for the trusty omnibus.
So how many's been in that, Morgan? 3. Okay.
So take a last look at McBain with Buffalo Springfield hairdo.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it is one of the best author photographs, isn't it?
It's great.
It's very nice. Good grainy black and white shot.
If I remember from previous huffing, it doesn't really smell of anything. So there's no need to huff that again.
That's done. My copy of this, and I'll go to mine first. So it's a pan edition. So the British collectors will now be getting into the loads and loads of pan editions.
Which there's something inside.
Indeed, one of the ones we did before, possibly the last one, was also a pan edition and had the signature of what appears to be D. Llewellyn Hodge written inside it and an ex libris stamp. So we have seen one when I bought 2 or 3 at a time, and it had this clearly from someone's collection.
Yeah.
Yours cost half as much as mine. Yours cost £1. Mine cost £2.
It was clearly owned in 1980 new, because the edition I've got is a pan edition, but it's a reprint from 1980, whereas the original edition came out in 1970. So it took a little while for it to get into paperback in the UK anyway. And the cover of my edition it's the shiny gold McBain logo, one of my favourite logos I quite like, and it's covering up a close-up of a screaming face on presumably what's supposed to be a TV monitor, because it's got lots of lines and lines and lines
Indeed.
on it. But it's covering up the eyes, ironically. So the cover of 80 Million Eyes is eyeless.
It's more like somebody who stubbed their toe, though, isn't it? Ah! Like that, as opposed to a scream. Ah!
I'd like you to imagine that noise when I put the picture up of this online for people to see. Imagine that noise that Stevo just made and see if it fits.
That's what I've not seen that before, so that's my immediate reaction to that.
It's all right though. It's quite a nice little edition. I think the cover's pretty good for a 1980 book.
Yeah.
Now we jump to Stevo's edition, which is also a pan edition.
It looks like Richard Keys holding a gun and pointing at you with a sovereign ring on. It's rubbish, really, isn't it?
Is it the first edition, Stevo?
Bears no resemblance to anything.
Yeah, it's got nothing to do with the story whatsoever.
Steaming gun.
Steaming gun. Someone's heated up this gun.
Smoking gun.
Someone's just boiled it on the hob.
Smoking gun. This is...
Steaming gun.
First published Great Britain 66, this edition published 70.
So that's the first pan edition of it.
Excellent.
Second printing, third printing.
Third printing of the first edition of it.
Yes.
Because I can confirm that the first edition, which has exactly the same cover as yours, had a gold sticker on it that says
Steaming gun.
A new pan full of steaming guns. But I think they clearly got this contract to put out all these paperbacks, and in the very first tranche of UK paperbacks, they just did
Couldn't be asked.
They didn't read the story. They just put. Someone said, "Get me some crimey things for the cover." Crimey.
So, have a look at those.
So I'm passing Stevo.
Am I right in thinking there's not a
first
single
editions.
eye on any of these 80 million eyes?
That one down there, possibly?
There's one eye.
One eye.
There's a graphic-y eye.
Oh,
in
there's
that
a
one.
graphic eye. There's 2 eyes on 1, 2, 3, 4 different versions.
Yeah, and I've obviously not got all the versions that have been published, but I suspect the
There's
eye
a
actually
man,
isn't.
the man, and he doesn't even have any eyes. It's strange, isn't it? UK hardback, quite like that design actually. I like that font. That's like on, if you're in a nuclear bunker in 1966, that would be the font of
That is
telling
true.
you what to do.
It's quite a classy bit of design, that, isn't it?
So that's Hamish Hamilton still, the
Like-
UK hardback
Like that
edition.
font as well on the US paperback.
Yeah.
I think this is my favourite.
So you're coming down on the side of the Hamish Hamilton UK hardback edition.
mainly the font.
I quite like that run of books. It's got a nice bit of graphic design of someone clutching their tummy on a TV monitor, but it's all done in sort of silhouette, not silhouette, cut out almost.
Yeah.
Did the guy who did the moody photos on the penguins do one for this? You know, we've had quite a few of those.
Oh, I don't think he would have done. Or are we talking about the,
I'd like to know what he would have done with the...
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
he'd have had an eye.
yeah.
He's got an eye for that.
He's
kind
got
of
a knife. Ah, very good.
Yeah.
But perhaps, Morgan, you could describe the US hardback, the Delacorte edition, the first one that would have appeared.
It does feature an eye, a stylized kind of eye in... what do we call that? I'm trying to think how we describe that kind of printing. It's like...
Sort of stippled.
Yeah.
Stipple, yeah.
It's a bit like in the colouring in an old Marvel comic where you've got lots of dots making up the image. And anyway, a stylized eye with a dead body where the pupil should
Looks
be.
a bit sci-fi, that,
It
somehow,
does.
doesn't it?
You'd expect it to be a little bit futuristic.
Yeah, a bit future.
But it's quite stylish.
No, I do like that, actually.
I'd be intrigued by that cover.
I am quite keen on the Dell edition, the US paperback, which Steve said he liked the font on, but it's wonderfully busy. There's lots of stuff going on
yes.
Looks like bees, but they're actually
there. Capsules.
capsules.
That classic old party game, bees or capsules.
But they do look a bit like bees, don't they?
Well, they're
What's
hovering
that?
around. That's.
It's like on a bar of soap or something. What is that supposed to be?
I presume it's supposed to be a TV monitor, but it's sort of hovering in space.
Looks
so
a bit more like a bar of soap.
It's like a bar of soap stuck to the forehead of this woman
Who is
while she's
being-
been attacked by bees.
What was the quote on the
It's
bottom? Of
strange. It's strange. They're really strange, some of the covers. It's like absolutely no effort or really weird effort.
Yeah.
And not the effort you'd expect, which is someone reading the title and going, 80 million eyes, let's just stick loads of eyes on there, which has definitely happened with a lot of the others that we've seen.
Yeah.
It'd be like, are there bees in this store? No. No, but I can understand that. But
Yeah.
it's, I'm joking. Upside down, it looks like bees. Or ants.
Bees or ants.
But yeah, I always love looking at the old covers, different covers, because it's they're all a bit mad in their own ways.
Well, it's interesting to look at the first editions and see how these stories were first presented before they became, a thing on a shelf like some of these later pans are. And actually, in some cases, the presentation of them as paperbacks that are just out or have been out for 14 years in the case of my edition, the paperback is better presented then than it was when it first came out. It's an education. Anyway, I'll put this stuff up on our Instagram page and link to it through our various social media, so you can look and tell me which is your favourite, and if you've got any other ones, I'll try and dig out some of the foreign editions as well. Are you going to huff your book, Steve?
Huff, yeah. Christ, I nearly forgot them. You ready?
Driven to blasphemy through near huff forgetfulness.
Ooh. It's like there's a sweetness to that. It's like a
Let me see.
No,
Let's see if its
quite-
sweetness is my weakness.
quite unusual.
Michelle Gale reference.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, there's a
That's a tribute to two of my sisters-in-law. Who are called
yeah. I'm
Michelle
not
and Gail.
sure about that. So there's an unexpected huff.
Do you know
that
what
one.
I've got in there? It's almost like there's a tiny hint in the background of a struck match. The smell of a struck match.
Right.
I'm gonna
Somebody's
pass it to
setting
Morgan.
fire to.
Very
Somebody's,
important smell.
Notoriously unreliable.
Somebody's setting fire to an apple cart.
Oh, that's lovely.
Not upsetting it, just setting fire to it.
I suspect it would be upset if it was on fire.
I'm not getting anything, sorry.
Yeah.
A fiery apple cart.
That's
There
the
we
best
go.
huffing description you've come to yet.
Very,
So-
very vivid description there.
Mine's just slightly musty book.
They're always the worst. Yeah, it doesn't really smell of some stainage on the side there as well.
Yeah, I
Quite
suspect
like
you
that.
may have just inhaled a lot of spores.
Yeah, it's a bit.
Not spores,
Yours is more.
spores.
Yeah, more. Bit of leakage on the corner
Yeah,
there.
it's a mucky book.
Like a bit of damp's got in.
You and your mucky box.
In my mucky books, indeed.
So there we go.
We had a question from.
And that's all. We're yeah.
That was some
enjoyed
good
that.
huffing, I think.
Yeah, well,
It was beautiful, poetic.
first time we've just done two, but
But we got a question from a listener, and that listener is Gary, my brother, who everyone will have listened to on the second of the Christmas bonus podcasts when we discussed Danger Dinosaurs, which was quite the story. But Gary was pondering again on adapting the 87th Precinct, but the question was, I think we've sort of touched on it perhaps in passing in discussion
not going to
before.
ask us who's going to play that. are you?
Who would you
We-
have as Steve Carella? What we do like that question. We're just not very good at answering it. It's fine.
Yeah.
By the end of the run, we'll have a definitive answer.
Yeah. By the end of the run, there'll probably have been 3 different adaptations of these.
Probably, yeah.
But the question was, what format would you see the 87th Precinct being filmed in now? A series of films or one story over several episodes? Story per episode? I know what I'd prefer, and I'd prefer a story per episode, but them to be
Yeah.
feature length.
I'm back to back beasting through the Poirots at the moment, and they're 50 minutes per the early ones.
The early ones are, yeah.
Like the later ones are like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah.
They're too long. They go on forever. Nothing
Some of them-
happens. Oh,
Yeah, some
painful.
of them they introduce characters or explore characters you don't really need to.
Yeah, you just
explore.
like have no interest in this at all. So 50 minutes for those is perfect, and they're probably similar
Yeah,
length and detail of plot and number of characters, etc. So I would say, I think if you strung them out into mini series, you would have to do serious.
Yeah, you'd have to pad them something wrong.
Unless you did something a bit like NYPD Blue, where you can generally have one plot per episode, but some you can
that's-
underline that go on
That's
for
what I was
longer.
going to say. I mean, I think there are some that would benefit from a bit of a more in-depth treatment. So maybe if you had that kind of series where you have sort of a different case popping up every episode, but then an overriding kind of case that works along in the background too, I think that would make a pretty good format.
Because then that would allow you to have... Because the beauty of these for television would be the fact that you've got potentially big cast, isn't it? You've got lots of characters that you can
Yeah,
get involved with. So just to compartmentalise, so this episode has these 3 in, and then next episode has the other 3. You're a bit more into
So
Hill Street Blues territory there, whereas...
Yeah.
Let's get them all in, pretty much all of it, as best you can. So yeah, it's probably a blend of the two, I would say.
Yeah,
Is my answer for that.
Well, I mean, we just read 80 Million Eyes, which has got 2 stories running concurrently. The A story, which is the Stan Gifford murder, I'd say, and the B story, which is Kling. The Kling thing is part of his character development, so that's something that would be happening across a number of episodes, as it happens across a number of books.
Yeah, you could string that out or condense it with the other.
But you wouldn't want, say, like the Deafman stories, you wouldn't want them to be like a big, long, drawn-out thing, because most of the Deafman stories are like, bang, something insane is happening.
Something's happening in one afternoon
Yeah,
somewhere.
you can't drag those out because it's kind of they're high impact and it's kind of an emergency, isn't it? And yeah,
But you could... Some of those do include a lot of chapters that don't involve the 87. It's about him planning them.
Yeah, this
so
is
they'd be
sort
the
of
type of
heist
things.
story.
They're the
You
things
could
you can
have a
tease
couple
people
of
with.
little precursor bits in earlier
Yeah,
episodes.
it's just
and then I
like,
think
oh,
sort of
this guy's back. What's he up to now? You know,
just before the big
planning
series
something.
finale, you maybe have the big full Deathman episode, and then you have the last episode that's the culmination of this other big plot that's been building up.
Yeah,
for,
you could have 15-minute snippets throughout of building up to some diabolical plan.
Starting off fairly incongruous, just a nondescript gentleman going and renting an ice cream truck, etc.
And then you do nothing more about that till the following episode.
If they do a new adaptation of this, it's going to break my heart that I'm not allowed to be involved in doing it.
I'd imagine you'd be consulted, surely.
If I don't get a consultant credit from some American production company who's never heard of us and has no interest in our opinion whatsoever. Oh, my poor little heart.
Are the TV rights
Well, I've
owned
not
by
heard.
somebody in their entirety or not?
I
Probably
have not
are they?
heard anything at all since, and I don't feel it's the sort of question I could put to, say, Jane Gelfman, Hunter's agent, still, because TV rights are notoriously. Well, it takes a long time for things to be developed, and very often things die at an early phase, go into a cupboard somewhere. People might keep paying for the rights just to make sure no one else gets them, things like that. Stuff that's happened with films and stuff all the time.
You would have thought
It just-
kind of Netflix type of.
It just feels like there's this body of work that's just ripe for adaptation now. Well, always really, but now particularly given the rise of stuff like Netflix and Amazon and stuff like that.
I think with these, on certainly some of them, you would. Well, you'd put up with some fairly loose adaptations, wouldn't you? On some,
You have to as well to make them fit into whatever time you set them in.
Yeah, it'd be better than the Martin Beck series, which, as far as I could gather, bore no relation whatsoever to.
You see,
books.
I've banged on about those books, and I watched one episode of that, and I thought I am not interested
Likewise.
in ever watching this ever again because
You've saved me the effort then.
I don't know
because
if there
it's-
were some episodes that were based on the books, but just
It's not as though the annoying thing is it's not as though it was a bad television program. I just thought, well,
they might as well have just invented a whole separate thing and not
you'd-
called it
and
that.
I would have been more interested in watching it then because I'd have thought, well, but you just watch it and think, well, what's the point? It's just such a waste of an opportunity.
When you've got a series of books that's such a perfect, self-contained, brilliantly crafted thing, and then you just take a couple of the names from it and write on some generic Scandi crime nonsense.
In that one, jump into that, the character of Larson, at least he had a little bit in common with the character in the book, but Beck's absolutely nothing like the guy in the book, and he's the main focal point, and they ditched all the rest of the supporting cat. I just thought it was totally
was
ridiculous.
baffled
So
by it.
totally crap. So if they did something like that, you wouldn't be interested at all.
As we've said before, everyone, if you like McBain, you will love the Martin Beck books, but probably not the series by the sounds of it.
Yeah, whereas at least the
87
Wallanders,
Oh, the Wallanders.
Oh, yeah.
obviously they did the books of those in the Scandinavian series fairly faithfully, I would say. And then after that, obviously go and write their own. Yeah, that Beck, So if they did something like that, you would beg the question, what's the point?
Yes.
So we've answered your question, Gary. Now we'll just wait for the phone to ring and Hollywood TV.
Perhaps we should do our own radio plays of them.
Would you have the music and then
The 87th Precinct.
Yeah,
I think they'd work well as radio plays as well.
that'd be
I've
great,
thought about how you would adapt that before.
well, I mean, we should try and do one as a bonus episode.
Us doing all the voices and with all the kind of Foley stuff just scattered around
Gravel
between the
train.
mics. Yeah, brilliant.
No, I think they'd be very interesting to hear them as radio plays.
You're not giving me a yes or no on that. I think we should. Maybe the very short one, the Christmassy one.
Well,
Christmas treat for all our
who
listeners. knows?
In fact, there was, and I didn't mention this because it just didn't come up at the time, there was a German radio version of And All Through the House
All right.
that was played over on the radio, possibly on an internet radio station. I'm not sure. I don't speak German, but I saw it in passing on Twitter. An adaptation of it done in German.
All right.
So that's, it's been adapted. It's an adaptable thing. I thought we'd shift back to something I mentioned in the main podcast, though. And it's very important. We talked about the films that were released in 1966, and I mentioned Morgan, A Suitable Case for Treatment. I'm sorry, Morgan. I couldn't leave this once I'd read the synopsis. And I'd like to share the synopsis of this film with you. So this might be good for you. If you say you people have appended your name with this subtitle in real life, you want to know what this film's about, really, to know what...
I've kind of carefully avoided finding out up till now, but...
Well, this is going to be a revelation.
It's not about a Morgan car, is it?
Sadly
Be a
not.
letdown.
It's a British film, so it's some quite well-known British names in it. Now, I will say now, I don't know whether it's considered to be a good film, a bad film, a middling film, or just one of those bizarre mid-60s curiosities. In 1966, a lot of British films did very well in America, which couldn't get enough of British output. Things like Alfie, for instance, were huge in America. But Morgan, Suitable Case for Treatment. So the main character is Morgan Delt, D-E-L-T, played by David Warner. David Warner, great actor.
Splendid.
But he plays Morgan, who's a failed artist, raised as a communist by his parents.
Excellent.
He has a very upper-class wife, played by Vanessa Redgrave, who basically gives up on him and is trying to get divorced so she can marry someone else, an art gallery owner. Given, it says here, this is a synopsis mainly from Wikipedia, given the innately rich and personal world of fantasy that Morgan has locked himself into, he goes off the deep end. So his creative world is shattered and triggered and sent mad by this upcoming divorce. He performs a series of bizarre stunts in a campaign to win his wife back, including putting a skeleton in her bed and blowing up the bed as her mother sits on it. Which is the first thing you do when you try to, repair a relationship, isn't it? Now this gets better. When these stunts fail, I don't have a full list of the stunts, we need some mystery. Morgan secures the help of his mother's wrestler friend, Wally the Gorilla,
Excellent.
played by Arthur Mullard. For people who aren't British and don't know who or if you are British and don't know who Arthur Mullard is, look him up. He is a thing to behold as an actor, a singer,
Oh,
and
yeah. What a singer.
I think a domestic abuser as well. And another one of my twists of positive endings to a story. But basically, something happens with this guy called Wally the Gorilla, who's a wrestler. Morgan's arrested, but he escapes. And he crashes the wedding reception of his ex-wife and her new husband, dressed as a gorilla.
Okay.
And then flees the wedding on a motorcycle with his gorilla suit on fire.
Brilliant.
And then he's committed to an insane asylum. And then
Great.
some other stuff happens.
Sounds cracking.
Okay,
It stars Bernard Bresslaw as well.
Oh, there's the carry-on link.
And it stars David Warner in the lead, who was in the British version of Wallander. So that links directly to...
See, everything comes together.
All connects up.
Yeah, it was nominated for 3 Oscars.
Blimey.
Best Actress in Leading Role, Best Costume. 2, sorry. Nominated for the Palme d'Or, 1966 Cannes.
Well, there we go.
I think you need to dig this one out more.
I think so, yeah.
Really. Do you feel it in any way reflects your own life?
It sounds pretty much like they've just taken my life story and put it on film. It's
So this film happens in 1966, and then 13 years later, you were born as a tie-in promotional opportunity.
It's uncanny, really.
I
Wow, it looks amazing. You can't go far wrong with a movie which prominently features a man in a gorilla suit. Although it's better if the man in the gorilla suit's meant to be representing an actual gorilla.
Yes,
obviously.
that's always good. And we were watching a Sherlock Holmes, one of the Jeremy Brett Sherlock Holmes the other day, which I think features as one of the main things that happens in it, a man in a gorilla suit playing an actual gorilla. And at the end, Holmes locks the villains in a cage with this gorilla. Like it wouldn't just tear them to shreds. Holmes had basically sentenced these two thugs to be torn
Death
apart
by
by a
gorilla.
male gorilla.
Brilliant.
Shouldn't mess around with him.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, what's that James Bond film with the gorilla in it? It's a Roger Moore one, isn't it?
It's bound to be. I don't know, but the moment you say the one with the gorilla in it's bound to be a Roger Moore one.
What happens with the gorilla?
I don't know. The Gorillas Blofeld? I don't know. Is it one with a circus? Oh, I don't know. This isn't Smirsh Pod. I don't have to know this stuff.
Octopussy.
Possibly.
That sounds suitably.
I can't
Octopus is
remember him with
extremely
the
silly, isn't it? So that's probably in the
It's
case.
probably gorilla silly.
Is that the one that's got Q floating around in a submarine disguised as a crocodile? Or I just invented
yeah,
that
yeah,
one.
Yeah. That's Octopussy. Yeah. Yeah.
More of that sort of stuff, please, Bond.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a very good impression of a...
Automated crocodile mouth.
That's definitely what people should be debating about future Bond movies, rather than which kind of minority should play James Bond next. It's
Yeah.
or shouldn't, and then getting very upset about it and describing everything as political correctness gone mad. It should
Absolutely,
just
yeah.
all be about whether or not Q will appear in a submarine disguised as a crocodile.
This is the important debate we should be having.
Absolutely.
I don't care who plays Bond, as long as automated crocodile,
Yeah.
etc.
Will anyone be attacked with a yo-yo that has blades that come out of it? That was quite good. I've forgotten which one that was.
That was Yo-Yo Blade.
Ah, yeah, that one is good.
James Bond will return in Yo-Yo Blade.
That was Gold. What was that? No, that was one of the Brosnan ones, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Anyway,
Basically, more of the daft stuff.
Yeah.
Just want more of that.
More of the daft stuff,
Fair
less
enough.
feelings.
Oh, yeah.
Right, I think we should conclude there. We have taken in the covers of 80 Million Eyes. We've discussed adaptations of the 87th Precinct and extant adaptations of other things as well that you can currently watch or not watch, depending on whether they're any good, like Wallander versus the Martin Becks. We've looked at Morgan, A Suitable Case for Treatment, so we've put that to bed, and discussed spy crocodiles. Don't think there's anything left on the agenda, is there, really?
no, I don't think so. No.
Just about wraps it up.
Yeah.
Well, join us next time for FUZZ. I'm off. Bye.
Bye.
Fairly well.